quite interesting. The previous times we featured Ashton, he's gone up in like mirror matches against the Groudon Xerneas teams, but Jonathan is running quite a different team from some of the teams we've seen Ashton play. So it'll be cool to see how he adjusts. And of course, like we mentioned, Ashton just has such a great list of accomplishments.
Let's go ahead and pull up all of those accomplishments right there for Ashton. Of course, 2019 Latin American International Champion, as well as the 2017 Latin American International Champion, as well as a couple of regional championships under his belt this season as well. So a very, very strong season for Ashton, as well as past accomplishments. He's going to be piloting the team of Primal, Groudon, Xerneas, Kangaskhan, Metagross, Tornadus Incarnate, and Tapu Koko. So a very strong team, as we saw before. It's a very fast Groudon. It's a very powerful Groudon that utilizes its special attack stat instead of its normal physical attack stat.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the bulk of those accomplishments come from 2019, but Ashton's actually been around since 2014. I think even back in 2014, he made day 2 of this very competition. So he's a very seasoned competitor, and he's really, really come into one of the top players, especially in the more recent years, just being so consistent. So yeah, not a surprise to see him once again here, as this really, really feels like his year.
Yeah, of course. He's got a tough opponent here in the top 8. Jonathan Evans over on the other side, of course, World's runner-up in 2016. He won a regional championship in 2018 in Sheffield, and of course has top cut some European events over in the United Kingdom. So he is going to be piloting the team of Rayquaza, Kyogre, Metagross, Incineroar, Mimikyu, and Tapu Koko. So using a core that defeated him in 2016.
Yeah, also really, really fun to see the Mimikyu here. It's not a Pokemon that we've seen really featured very much throughout the course of this season at all, but of course quite good in previous formats that it was allowed in, of course, with the Snorlax that we often saw paired in previous years. So yeah, Jonathan, once again, hasn't really played too much this year, so he's going up against someone with a lot of experience in these formats, but he is no stranger to the restricted formats, and I'm really excited to see the classic Rayquaza Kyogre against Groudon Xerneas, but this time there's some new Pokemon on both sides that make this really fun. I would love to see the Mimikyu come out from Jonathan's end.
And here we go now, jumping into team preview. Both players trying to figure out what their best course of action is here. Of course, Rayquaza Kyogre versus that Groudon Xerneas, a match that has been so popular, so fierce. As a Rayquaza Kyogre player, you kind of have to figure out how to deal with Groudon and Xerneas, which is pretty easy with Rayquaza's airlock ability, or even being able to Mega Evolve it to get that Delta Stream ability up.
Yeah, obviously Xerneas is so good against Rayquaza and Kyogre, and so Jonathan is going to want to bring some answers to it. I think Metagross is the most obvious one. Metagross being a pretty interesting pick, though, because if you do bring that and Rayquaza both in the game, then you obviously can only Mega Evolve one, and most of the time you'll be wanting to Mega Evolve the Metagross. So, yeah. If Jonathan does decide to bring both of those, then obviously he has to make the important decision on who to Mega Evolve. And we obviously know that the Groudon is special on Ashton's end, so something like Incineroar's Intimidates might not be as good as you would hope for normally in this kind of matchup. Mimikyu definitely could be a wild card here. I mean, Mimikyu is one of those Pokemon that gets access to really, really great support moves. It can also set up a potential Trick Room, which could be really critical against Xerneas, especially should it be able to set up. And we haven't seen Jonathan play on stream at all, so we're not sure what kind of sets these Tapu Koko or Incineroar. We'll see if they have ways to potentially stop the Xerneas as well from setting up. But, for Ashton, I think if he's able to check the Metagross, then the Xerneas really still just beats everything. And for Jonathan, his goal will really be to stop that Xerneas.
And here we go now. Both players ready. They've selected their teams. We are ready to jump into game 1 here of this first top 8 match here on the main stage between Jonathan Evans and Ashton Cox. This is going to be an exciting match between two experienced players, especially in this restricted format here, as Kyogre and Incineroar are the leads that Jonathan decides to lead with, while Ashton decides to counter with Tapu Koko and Metagross.
Yeah, so first time we're seeing the Tapu Koko and the Metagross from Ashton's end, so kind of excited to see what they can do. Of course, Jonathan going with this really, really oppressive lead immediately. One of the nice things, however, of course, is Metagross does have that clear body, so it won't be intimidated before it Mega Evolves. Kyogre putting on an immense amount of pressure right now. A Water Spout or an Origin Pulse will do so much damage to both of these Pokemon. Ashton, of course, always has the option to go for a Volt Switch or just Hard Switch out into the Groudon, but you do have to be careful of Jonathan potentially just Hard Switching the Incineroar out into Rayquaza turn 1 and getting a big Water-type attack off here. So there's a lot going on immediately. We haven't really seen how Ashton plays with this Tapu Koko and the Metagross, so I'm really excited to see what sets both players are opting for here.
That's one mind game that you have to play with if you're a Rayquaza Kyogre player. When is that Rayquaza going to come in, and is it going to be able to take advantage of a possible, surprise Origin Pulse or Water Spout, despite the fact that, your opponent was expecting the Groudon to be able to safely switch in. So That is going to be big.
Ooh, here's the hard switch out.
Switches out the Incineroar into Rayquaza. What is Ashton going to do to counter this move here? Does Groudon decide to switch in after this Volt switch? Well, no, Tapu Koko just goes ahead and goes for a Protect. Not going to want to take a big Water Spout or Origin Pulse here, as Metagross also uses Protect this turn. So really, Ashton here just scouting this turn. Pretty safe. Kyogre couldn't really switch or set up anything, whereas, you know, you can just Protect to dodge the Fake Out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jonathan there basically predicting you don't want to eat a Fake Out and a Water type attack. You might switch out into Groudon, so let me potentially take advantage of that. Ashton, however, plays it smart, doesn't walk into it, and now he's putting on a lot of pressure this upcoming turn. Metagross is a Pokemon that potentially gets access to Ice Punch and can Ice Punch a Rayquaza. Tapu Koko, of course, still is faster than Kyogre and Rayquaza as well, even after the Mega Evolution. So there was a nice switch by Jonathan, trying to bait in a Groudon. It doesn't happen. Of course, however, because Ashton did Protect with both Pokemon last turn, he's probably going to want to go on the offense this turn. Maybe Mega Evolve. You could potentially double up into one of these to get a knockout. The question is, who does Ashton deem more threatening? You'd imagine it is Kyogre, but of course, Kyogre always has the option to actually protect this turn.
Rayquaza actually switches out here as well. Incineroar is going to go ahead and take the field again. So smart move to be patient by Ashton to maintain that Metagross in its current state, providing it with a clear body ability for this turn in case that Incineroar decided to switch in, which is going to be so important because it blocks it. And here comes Metagross, going to go ahead and Mega Evolve here. Going to get that tough pause ability, which gives it a little bit of extra damage towards physical moves, so that's going to be pretty important. And one of the reasons why Mega Metagross is so strong. So here we go now. It looks like it's going to be a Z move. Oh! It's going to be a Guardians of Alola from Ashton's Tapu Koko here. Going to go ahead and bring a Pokemon down to just 1/4 of its remaining hit points. So that's going to be big damage out here on the field. So, you know, normally Nature's Madness does half, but Guardian of Alola does 3/4.
Yeah, let's see who it goes into. Presumably Ashton doubled up into this Kyogre. That'd be such a big knockout if the Tapu Koko and Metagross did target it. And it is into that Kyogre. Wow.
Kyogre normally a bulky Pokemon. However, it's going to be immediately dropped to 1/4 of its hit points here, as Metagross is going to go for a Stomping Tantrum here. Going to hit into that Kyogre. Big damage, and that is enough to get the KO. So huge knockout there.
Phenomenal play there by Ashton. Wow. I mean, Jonathan kind of baiting the attacks out, but that's the thing. With Tapu Koko and Metagross onto the field, because they're faster than the Mega Rayquaza and the Kyogre, you can double up into a slot. Jonathan had the option to protect the Kyogre there, but hoping that the attacks would be kind of redirected into Rayquaza, baiting it out there. And Ashton revealing that he has a very special Tapu Koko. I don't think I've ever really seen that in a competitive tournament other than maybe one thing online in 2017. So really cool to see that. And it's actually really good, right? Because, yeah, obviously an Electrium Z can knock out Kyogre, but that will do 75% of damage to anything. So great start to the game for Ashton. And like you mentioned, the conservation of Clear Body also allowing the Metagross to not take any attack drops so far. So Ashton still has 2 restricted Pokemon potentially in the back as well. A great start for him. And yeah, I mean, if there is that Xerneas matches up quite nicely against both Rayquaza and Incineroar.
Yeah, of course, when Tapu Koko do carry that Z crystal that allows you to use Guardian of Alola, you opt for less.
Oh, wow.
Here comes a Fake Out, and Ashton reveals Electro Web onto the Incineroar and Rayquaza. Going to go ahead and slow things down just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not the standard Tapu Koko we've seen before. Rayquaza will go for his Swords Dance, so, you know, that gives Jonathan a potential opportunity to come back into this game. But, of course, now Rayquaza definitely going to be slower. It already was slower to begin with. One of the questions I do have is what the Metagross set is. Does it have something like an Ice Punch? If not, then you won't be able to knock out the Rayquaza, although with Rayquaza Mega, we probably wouldn't have knocked out anyways. However, nice to slow things down a little bit, and because Metagross still has its full attack, I mean, you can go for like a Stomping Tantrum, maybe go for you know, target the Rayquaza with the Nature's Madness. Ashton has a ton of options right now. I think because he's ahead, he does want to just get knockouts. I wonder if the Rayquaza even has a way to really hit this Metagross. If you have Dragon Ascent and Extreme Speed, it really won't be a 4th option. Here's Nature's Madness into Rayquaza. Is it just going to be a double up? If so, that just might be it.
Most likely, here comes Metagross' Iron Head following up into that Rayquaza. That is enough to get the KO, so Jonathan already losing 2 of his restricted Pokemon here, as Ashton still has both of his possible restricted Pokemon in the back. Incineroar now following up with a Flare Blitz into that Metagross slot. Not Intimidate, does big damage as well, but Metagross so bulky, hangs on. So great plays right here from Ashton, just really doubling up in those big restricted Pokemon on Jonathan's side. Yeah,
I mean, both times just saying fully committing into it, not worrying about the other threat. And it makes sense because both times, there wasn't a Pokemon that could immediately one-hit KO either the Tapu Koko or the Metagross. Jonathan actually reveals his last Pokemon. That's also pretty good information for Ashton to know. I think Ashton is so far ahead right now, and with Electro Web, you'll be able to guaranteed slow things down, and the Groudon in the back, presumably for Ashton, really should be able to finish this game off. So I think Jonathan probably going to start going ahead and thinking about game 2. But yeah, Ashton just making some big plays this game, doubling up in 2 different times, and for it to just pay off perfectly. I mean, this Tapu Koko has been putting in so much work, and the combination of Tapu Koko and Metagross is so dangerous against Jonathan's team because they're just so fast.
Yeah, and Jonathan Evans there clicking in the forfeit, not wanting to reveal any more information about his team to Ashton and preserving that for later on. Knowledge is such an important part of this game, so smart play right there from Jonathan to just kind of take it right back to the drawing board. Now he has to figure out how to deal with Ashton's leads, even if Ashton decides to go with the same Metagross and Tapu Koko leads. Important information to know, this Tapu Koko is slightly different. Have to watch out for that Guardian of Alola, and of course, watch out for that Electro Web. You know, it's one of those things that consistently puts pressure on your side of the field. You can't really switch because you're just going to get hit with an Electro Web, and your Pokemon are going to be slower as they come in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like Jonathan had good Pokemon in that last one. It's just he lost both of his restricteds, and they pretty much did absolutely nothing, right? Rayquaza got some attention away with the Swords Dance, but Ashton just making such good double targets with the Tapu Koko and the Metagross. So if Jonathan wants to go with the same Pokemon, then he's got to be able to predict these double ups a little bit better. He can't just lose Kyogre and Rayquaza for absolutely nothing. Mimikyu is a really interesting option. I think it is quite hard to bring here because, of course, you can double up into it, for example, with Tapu Koko and Metagross, break the disguise, and then go for something like an Iron Head just to knock it out. But Mimikyu is at least something where you can maybe switch into the Z move, and that way you can just completely negate the Z move through having the disguise. That being said, I mean, Jonathan's Pokemon weren't bad that last game, but he, Ashton just made some really great reads to make them relatively useless.
Yeah, so smart play right there from Ashton again. So Jonathan now trying to take time to decide what he wants to do here, as Ashton has already locked in his team. So Jonathan has some big things he has to think about here. What are his leads going to be? You never want to be caught out there with, well, your Kyogre and just get hit with another Guardian of Alola and then double up into with a Stomping Tantrum. So again, one of the key things about game 1 was just maintaining that Metagross in its clear body state so that it would not be intimidated by that Incineroar.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at what you can even bring if you're Jonathan to beat Tapu Koko and Metagross. It's just such a hard lead to break through, honestly. I mean, maybe you leave Incineroar in the back, hope for the Metagross to Mega Evolve, and then you can bring it in. Maybe you can lead with your own Metagross to put on some offensive pressure immediately because the Stomping Tantrum can presumably one-hit KO the Tapu Koko. I don't know. I just think, like, Jonathan had an okay lead that last game, tried to get a little bit fancy with the predictions. Earlier on, you know, Ashton didn't just switch in the Groudon because he was perfectly content attacking with Tapu Koko and Metagross. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ashton just go with the same thing. But for Jonathan, you know, how do you really adjust?
Here we go
here's
now.
The same thing.
Jumping into game 2 here, Jonathan Evans lost game 1, trying to force game 3.
There's Mimikyu, yes.
Here comes Incineroar and Mimikyu for Jonathan Evans, while Tapu Koko and Metagross are the leads of choice for Ashton.
I like the Mimikyu adjustment. That's exactly what I wanted to see. We don't know its moveset yet, but if it is carrying something like Trick Room or even the Ghost Z, you will be able to do a ton of damage and or maybe just outright knock out Metagross. So lots of options here. I do think Incineroar by far the best partner for this Mimikyu as a lead matchup, because if you don't have it, then of course Ashton can just double up into the Mimikyu for a knockout. So definitely expecting to see a fake out right now from Incineroar and Mimikyu either going for maybe a Ghost attack into Metagross or maybe just setting up Trick Room immediately to set the pace. That being said, I'm not sure Mimikyu or Incineroar can really hit Groudon for too much damage, so maybe Ashton would like to pivot out here and bring in the Groudon. He has a lot of offensive options. He is going to have to worry about a potential Trick Room, so you should expect it right now.
No switches at all here as Incineroar uses Fake Out onto that Metagross, as Tapu Koko over on Ashton's side going for the Volt Switch here. Going to go ahead and break the disguise of Mimikyu and allow Ashton to be able to pivot possibly to that Groudon that you've already mentioned before, Aaron.
Yeah, so, you know, breaking the disguise is really important here in this matchup because it means that it opens the Mimikyu to getting knocked out by such powerful attacks like Eruption or Iron Head from Metagross. I really like to see how Ashton plays with this Metagross, not just, you know, Mega Evolving like you pointed out immediately. Really conserve that Clear Body for potential Intimidates from Incineroar going into the future. It's actually going to be Xerneas coming out immediately, so let's see what Mimikyu goes for. Trick Room here would be quite big.
Yeah, it has not moved yet. So still has an option here as Metagross flinches itself right there, as Mimikyu now goes for a Trick Room. So that's going to go ahead and reverse the turn order.
Yeah, I once again think this is definitely a great adjustment by Jonathan. The last game, like, you know, you was kind of just rolling the dice in the predictions immediately. This time around, you get Trick Room up, you have the guaranteed first attack off, and this counteracts the speed options that we saw from Ashton earlier on. Of course, now he is still going to have to target things correctly. We know that a Flare Blitz won't knock out this Metagross from the Incineroar. So, for example, you might want to be inclined to double up into Metagross, but if Metagross protects, then Xerneas can get a big attack off. But it looks like Jonathan may be trying to bait out a protect from Ashton's end.
Yeah, so Mimikyu now protecting itself here as Incineroar using Flare Blitz, underspeeding it. No Mega Evolution from that Metagross at all here. This is going to be big damage, and that does not get the KO, even though Metagross has not Mega Evolved still, as Metagross just going for an Iron Head into that Mimikyu slot, as Xerneas using Geomancy here despite the Trick Room.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, seeing a Xerneas just Geomancy and Trick Room is not always, you know, the most expected outcome, but here it makes a lot of sense. Mimikyu and Incineroar would have to double up into the Xerneas for it to really get the knockout there. So, and the Metagross, depending on how the Mimikyu is trained, might actually be faster than Mimikyu under Trick Room, especially if you are running those like Trick Room Mimikyus that still opt for the most speed investment. So, right now, Xerneas, obviously the slowest Pokemon, but like we mentioned in Team Preview, Jonathan's only real answer against Xerneas is that Metagross, and that Metagross isn't even out right now. So, of course, Jonathan does have the potential to maybe double up onto the Xerneas and get a knockout onto it. If it is running the Z move on Mimikyu, then you can Z move and maybe Flare Blitz. But, of course, Ashton could just protect the Xerneas here. So, a lot of these games so far have come down to what do you protect and when do you protect. And Ashton right now, his goal is to stall out Trick Room, but his Xerneas is also exerting a lot of pressure and drawing attacks into it. And, yeah, we'll have to see if it protects this turn or whether he just goes straight for an attack.
Groudon switches in here, going to replace that. Metagross going to go ahead and revert to its primal form here. Bring out the Harsh Sunlight. Going to go ahead and activate that Desolate Land ability. Of course, Mimikyu does have access to Shadow Sneak. Could possibly just kind of pick up a really sneaky KO onto that Metagross as the Desolate Land finally takes effect here. Of course, Xerneas with the Geomancy, currently very speedy. Of course, it's very bulky as well. This Harsh Sunlight is actually just going to go ahead and boost Incineroar's Flare Blitzes. So Xerneas over on Ashton's side protects itself here as Incineroar does go for the Flare Blitz. And it is going to go ahead and target down that Primal Groudon here, despite being not very effective, doing some decent chip right there at 25% or so. As now Mimikyu going to go ahead and go for a Z move here. Looks like it's going to be the Let's Snuggle Forever.
Yeah, so some fun plays there. Ashton does decide to play a little bit more conservatively this time around and does go for the Protect. However, what this means is you can potentially double up into the Xerneas next turn, like you mentioned, with that Sunlight being out of Flare Blitz and a Play Rough or Shadow Claw from the Mimikyu might be enough to knock out the Xerneas. So the damage here is not going to be too big, obviously, but with Groudon in, pretty interesting position, especially because we know Ashton's Groudon is that special variant without Precipice Blade, so Ashton can only knock out one of these two Pokemon right now. So yeah, gonna get a little bit, actually more than a little bit of damage there. That actually did exactly 51, so that's exactly 25, actually a little bit more than 25%, so that means that Mimikyu actually would just one-shot the Xerneas had the Protect not happened there. That's a really important damage count to know.
Yeah, so smart play right there from Ashton to protect that Xerneas to scout for a possible Z move like that, so that's going to be good information. Jonathan Evans can actually force this game 3 here.
Yeah, so I definitely like how Jonathan's been playing this. Ashton did get the Geomancy off, but you still have to stall out 2 more turns of Trick Room, so this next turn is a little bit awkward. I think Jonathan would probably be inclined to double up onto the Xerneas, because if you can get rid of the Xerneas, then that makes your gameplay after Trick Room a lot easier. He goes for the double, and he got it!
He got the double protect, so Xerneas protects itself for yet another turn as Incineroar does double or does hit in that Xerneas protect, and Mimikyu does go for a Play Rough in that protect as well. So a huge double protect right there from Ashton. Xerneas and Groudon on Ashton's side going to go for a big boosted Eruption here. Big damage on that Mimikyu. Hangs on with about 30% of its hit points remaining as Incineroar hangs on as well because of its not very effectiveness.
Yeah, pretty impressive bulk actually there from the Mimikyu. I was expecting it to get the knockout, but instead it actually survives, looking like it has some investment. So, of course, very, very fortunate double protect there from Ashton. Jonathan might be inclined to go for the same play. If you're Ashton, I mean, do you, just go for another protect?
Here it is. No, it doesn't. It fails here as Incineroar goes for the Flare Blitz now, hits into that Xerneas. But again, Jonathan did pay the price the previous turn, did have to take some free Eruption damage here. Does Play Rough connect as Incineroar eats away at its berry and heals back 50% of its hit points. So one of those berries that you restore health in a pinch. So here comes Mimikyu using Play Rough. Oh!
Wow!
Groudon uses Earth Power here, gonna try to go ahead and get the KO on to the Incineroar. Incineroar actually hangs on with just a sliver of hit points as the Twisted Dimensions return to normal. Obviously, Mimikyu still has access to Shadow Sneak, but really unfortunate miss right there.
Yeah, I mean, especially because Xerneas failed the triple protect, you can actually just go for a protect this turn around, and Groudon can just retaliate and knock out Mimikyu. I mean, I feel like, yeah, if you're Ashton, you should be going for the double protect and the triple protect, but obviously just getting the right rolls there, making the right play still. He had the option to maybe switch out into something like the Tapu Koko because Xerneas is still quite good against what Jonathan probably has in the back. That being said, I think it makes sense to consider Tapu Koko and Metagross for the late game because we saw just how good it is. And the main thing now is Groudon's actually switching out, so I mean there is the potential for Trick Room, although unlikely because I think that means Xerneas here should... I mean, yeah, you're not just going to let a Trick Room go up, right? So if you Shadow Sneak, then Trick Room won't go up, and if you Trick Room, then Xerneas will just knock you out.
Jonathan here retreats his Incineroar, gonna go ahead and send out Kyogre, probably trying to block a possible eruption, but instead Ashton switches out Groudon for that Tapu Koko, as Jonathan's Kyogre now will go ahead and revert to its primal form, gonna go ahead and bring out that harsh rain, that heavy rain, as now what is Mimikyu gonna do here? Is it just gonna go for the Shadow Sneak on that Xerneas, or is Xerneas just gonna protect?
Does it have it? If it doesn't, the Xerneas is just gonna sweep through, but it does have it.
Uses Shadow Sneak, hits into that Xerneas slot, gets the big KO right there. Way to deal with you know, a boosted Xerneas in Trick Room after getting 2 protects. Eventually gets the KO.
Yeah, I mean, definitely unfortunate rolls for Jonathan throughout the course of the game, failing and you know, walking into the double protect, and of course the miss. But he's still not out of it by any means. Yes, Groudon comes out, and yes, it's able to reset the weather. But of course, we know that Jonathan has a Rayquaza. He can just switch into it, and that puts on pressure against the Groudon. However, because Ashton's team is so fast, we could see what we saw in that last game, right? Just a double up into the Kyogre with a Z move and an Earth Power, or maybe just an electric type attack and an Earth Power. So this is still really close. We're not sure how fast the Kyogre is on Jonathan's end. If it is max speed, then you at least give a chance of speed tying. With the team with Trick Room on it, presumably it's a little bit slower. Either way, right now, I mean, Jonathan needs to find a way to really be able to control the weather. And so now, do you protect the Kyogre and just switch into Rayquaza? And you try to bait out the Z move from Ashton, because if you can bait out the Z move, then you're not dealing with 75% of damage immediately on something. So for Ashton's end, you know, when do you click the Z move? And for Jonathan's end, are you protecting Kyogre this turn?
Yeah, and it looks like Kyogre is going to switch out on Jonathan's side. Incineroar is going to go ahead and take the field instead. If that is a Guardian of Alola into Incineroar, that is going to be very minimal damage. So let's see what happens here, as it looks like it's going to be the Guardian of Alola.
Who is it going into? I mean, either way, nice switch by Jonathan there, not to just eat it up with the Kyogre, learning from his mistakes in the first game.
Yeah, so here we go. Guardian of Alola, if it hits in that Incineroar, 1 damage maybe. If it is the Mimikyu, a little bit of damage. So here we go. Tapu Koko going to go ahead and smash down into that Incineroar. So smart switch right there from Jonathan to really minimize the amount of damage that this Zenith can do. That was one. That was one. As Groudon here uses Earth Power, gets KO onto that Incineroar. So big damage on that Incineroar, gets the KO. Pretty much ensuring the KO.
Yeah, but Mimikyu free to just Trick Room there. That actually should seal up this game for Jonathan as long as he hits his attacks. Excellent play by Jonathan. So there were a lot of mind games there, right? Ashton goes for that because you can't just allow Mimikyu to switch out into Rayquaza and Kyogre to get a big Origin Pulse off. But Jonathan saying, you're probably going to go for the Z move because there's just too much pressure exerted from Kyogre right now. I'm going to bait it out. You might not even touch Mimikyu. If you knock out the Mimikyu, then you won't be knocking out the Incineroar, and then you can switch in Kyogre and Incineroar, then you can fake out an Origin Pulse. So with Trick Room up, that actually should be game, and what a great adjustment by Jonathan. That Mimikyu was definitely the most pivotal member of this team.
Ashton here, gonna go ahead and click that forfeit button. Jonathan Evans forces a Game 3 after such a brilliant switch with that Incineroar in to, you know, take that Guardian of Alola for 1 hit point.
Wow. I mean, what a fun adjustment there by Jonathan. And yeah, we weren't sure what set this Mimikyu was carrying, but showing that it does have the Trick Room, showing that it's actually quite bulky, be able to take a full-powered Eruption from Groudon as well. Even with the double protect and the miss, Jonathan was still able to clean this game up. And I think that's a testament to the hyper-offensive fast nature of Ashton's team. If you have something like Trick Room, it's very difficult to be able to effectively deal with it. So I mean, going into this game 3, Ashton's obviously going to want to look for ways to stop Trick Room from going up, and there are a couple of good options. I think Tornadus is something, obviously, that I can look at immediately because, of course, it does get access to that taunt. Ultimately, Ashton brought Xerneas in this game, but Xerneas under Trick Room is just so weak, and we saw how strong this Mimikyu is with that Z move. Actually can just one-hit KO the Xerneas, and with no Intimidate from Ashton's end, the Mimikyu is actually quite the potent offensive threat.
Yeah, so tough adjustments right here for Ashton coming in. You know, Tornadus Incarnate can't really do much to the rest of Jonathan Evans' team, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's tough, right? Like, the best lead for Ashton, if he wants to guarantee to stop Trick Room, is probably something like the Kangaskhan and the Tornadus. That way you get the fast fake out and you get the taunt, but that's, you know, do you really want to bring Kangaskhan and Tornadus, giving up like the 2 most pivotal members in that first game? Kind of hard to say. So I think Jonathan found a really great lead that works within that last game, and if he is able to set up Trick Room, I think it's actually quite difficult for Ashton to be able to pull this one out. So now Ashton has to ask himself, all right, how do I stop Trick Room? And because of the fake out pressure from Incineroar, and because of Mimikyu having Disguise, it's actually really difficult. You're not able to, you know, one-hit KO it or launch 2 attacks into it after being targeted by a fake out. And so taunt is the only option. So I think there is actually however, we did see Roar on Kangaskhan earlier in the course of this tournament. So, I mean, could lead.
That's a chance.
Yeah, it still involves you leading Kangaskhan, though. That's
you
the
could
thing,
also
right?
You could also fake out the. I mean, then you'd have to bring out Tornadus and Kangaskhan. You could also fake out the Incineroar and then go for a taunt on the from the Tornadus onto the Mimikyu. But of course, then you're investing 2 of your support Pokemon to deal with this Trick Room. It's tough. Obviously, you have to watch out for the fake out from that Incineroar, unless you are running the Inner Focus variant of Kangaskhan. So you have to watch out for that fake out as well. So it's tough to try to stop this Trick Room.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I feel like Incineroar Mimikyu is just such a good lead from Jonathan. He's really figured out. So Kangaskhan's going to be coming out this time. Not going to be the Tornadus, but Incineroar Mimikyu once again from Jonathan's end. And that makes sense. Like, it is just really hard to really completely beat it. Now, of course, Kangaskhan does get access to the ability Scrappy, which allows it to potentially fake out the Mimikyu. So
that's true as well, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe one thing you can do here is fake out the Mimikyu, break its disguise, and then next turn double up into it.
Yeah, so, but again, you're putting all your eggs into one basket here, just trying to stop this Trick Room with this Kangaskhan. How is Ashton really going to be able to do it? I mean, Incineroar, I guess, is out on the field here. It does have access to fake out, but, you know, Kangaskhan is just a much faster Pokemon.
Yeah, it is. So Kangaskhan Tapu Koko actually being a really good adjustment. Yeah, obviously you are probably not going to have Metagross in the back this time around, but having a fast fake out here is a big deal. So I mean, Jonathan maybe wants to pivot out here. If you have Protect on Mimikyu, that actually would be a good time to go for it. So you actually break the... so that you keep the disguise. If there is Protect, that actually could be a really, really big deal because it can mean setting up Trick Room will be a little bit easier after the first turn.
And here we go now. Tapu Koko switches out for the Xerneas on Ashton's side of the field as it looks like Mimikyu
does
is just
have
going to
it.
go ahead and protect itself instead, not going to try to risk having its disguise be broken as Kangaskhan now uses Fake Out into that Mimikyu slot. So it is that Scrappy ability as Incineroar uses U-turn here. Going to go ahead and hit in that Kangaskhan slot and switch right back out.
That's a great play by Jonathan there. Doesn't end up taking any damage. Still keeps the disguise, which is actually such a big deal because now Kangaskhan, if you want to Mega Evolve, then of course you give up Scrappy, and now you can't really hit the Mimikyu other than using something like a Bite, which we've seen Ashton's team carrying. So, I mean, if Ashton wants to deny Trick Room, he might actually be forced to go for the Bite this upcoming turn. And his win condition might be to just try to flinch the Mimikyu, maybe get a Geomancy up with Xerneas. If you do get the flinch, then you can really sweep through. Rayquaza, however, of course, does put on some offensive pressure right now. With a little bit of chip damage onto the Kangaskhan could mean that a Dragonison could get a knockout. But yeah, I mean, here it's a tricky position because it feels like Jonathan, if he wants to set up Trick Room, should be able to get it. Of course, however, we do know that Ashton's Kangaskhan actually gets access to Roar, so you actually don't even need to fish for a potential flinch. So maybe what happens right now is you just go for the Roar and Geomancy. But of course, we know that Mimikyu Z move actually does a lot, so Jonathan could just choose not to go for the Trick Room and just go for the Z move into Xerneas. So Ashton has to really play around the Z move. The scary thing, though, is if you protect with Xerneas,
you might open up for Rayquaza Swords Dance.
Exactly, yes. And so this is not an easy position to be in if you're Ashton right now, especially because this Kangaskhan isn't going to be doing too much damage. I mean, Jonathan looks like he's actually trying to recycle the Intimidate, so making sure that Kangaskhan really doesn't do very much damage. We'll see if the Z move comes out this turn if Xerneas protects.
Yeah, and Incineroar takes the field again. Again, that is the second Intimidate dropped on to the Kangaskhan over on Ashton's side. The attack stat is essentially halved here as Kangaskhan goes ahead and Mega Evolves here, going to get that parental bond ability that makes Kangaskhan so powerful. Just being able to hit twice makes Bite have 2 chances to flinch, and Kangaskhan goes for Bite. Going to go for a Bite here on his Mimikyu. 2 chances to flinch. First one's going to go ahead and break the disguise, and the second one's going to do some damage, but is Mimikyu going to flinch here? And it looks like Xerneas is free to go for a Geomance here, going to go ahead and set up, but now what is this Mimikyu going to do? Is it going to flinch, or is it going to be able to go for a possible Trick Room, or is it going to be able to go for a Let's Snuggle Forever and get the KO outright onto the Xerneas here? So this is going to be so close.
It is, yeah. I mean, Let's Snuggle Forever here on a Xerneas. We saw how much damage it did in the first game. It looks like it does have a pretty good chance of just getting the one-hit KO. Let's see. Is there a flinch?
Oh, big flinch right there. Mimikyu cannot move this turn.
Wow.
Cannot go for a possible Let's Snuggle Forever and just go ahead and get the outright KO on Xerneas. So now this Xerneas is going to be so threatening.
Yeah.
There is that possibility of fake out on Incineroar, though.
There is, but here's the thing, right? You can fake out into the Xerneas, but what do, right? Xerneas can just protect here, and Kangaskhan can just roar the Mimikyu out. That was such a pivotal flinch there. Oh! Okay.
No protect at all as Incineroar goes for a fake out onto that Xerneas slot as Xerneas flinches and cannot move.
Oh, he's going for the bite. He didn't go for the roar.
Another possible flinch chance right here.
Mimikyu, is it? Yes! Oh, it gets the Z move off. Wow.
Gets the Z move off.
Ashton had the opportunity to protect Xerneas there, but he didn't.
Just really hoping for that bite to flinch right there.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Mimikyu gonna go ahead and snuggle forever with this Xerneas. We saw how much damage it did through the protect. That's gonna be enough to get the one-hit KO, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so Ashton made this play because he was fearing the fake out into Kangaskhan to block a potential roar. So Jonathan making the correct call there. Oh man, Mimikyu finally attacks through, doesn't get flinch, will get this Let's Snuggle Forever, and based off a little bit of chip damage it already has, this should knock out the Xerneas. What a game so far.
Yep, and there goes Mimikyu. Jonathan Evans giving it the thumbs up.
Is it enough?
Go ahead, Xerneas gets KO.
Wow.
Big KO right there as Mimikyu just spits that Xerneas right back out. Geomancy does not matter.
It doesn't, man. You know, it feels like kind of justice for Jonathan there after getting flinched and after getting a little bit of unlucky earlier, but that was a big play there, of course, right? Because if Xerneas protects there, you block the fake out, and Xerneas most likely just wins the game outright there. So Jonathan needed to make that call, ends up making an excellent prediction, and he is definitely back in this one, especially because Kangaskhan is now at -2 attack, so the damage output from it is rather negligible.
I mean, you saw how much those 4 bites did to that Mimikyu, right? Tapu Koko now takes the field for Ashton's side of the field. Will be able to provide some speedy support. Of course, you also have to watch out for that Guardian Valola, so you can't just kind of switch out willy-nilly or else you will lose
if this Tapu Koko doesn't have a way to stop Trick Room up, then I think, you know, Jonathan can just set up Trick Room here. I'm surprised to see the Kangaskhan switch out instead of trying to deny Trick Room through a bite or a roar here. Because now if Trick Room goes up, especially if the Incineroar U-turns, I think the game is just outright over. So if Jonathan makes the correct call this turn, this game might just end.
And here comes Primal Groudon with that Desolate Land. Gonna go ahead and boost Incineroar's Flare Blitz is here as Tapu Koko goes for a Volt Switch, lands into that Incineroar slot. So it looks like it might be a free Trick Room for this Mimikyu if Jonathan Evans believes that, you know, his back couple Pokemon are gonna function much better in Trick Room, which they are.
Yeah, like a Kyogre under Trick Room will really just destroy everything on Ashton's end. So let's see if Trick Room goes up. Flare Blitz is coming out first. And I mean, still can't stress how big it was last turn to have gone for that play. Really, really excellent call there. Very risky, obviously.
Here comes the Trick Room from this Mimikyu.
Yeah, there it is.
Underspeeding that Incineroar thanks to its negative priority. So Jonathan Evans' board state now looking very good.
Very good indeed, yes. I mean, yeah, this turn there is the threat of Kangaskhan, but all you need to do is pivot out and get Kyogre in. Even if it has like 2 turns of Trick Room, Ashton doesn't really have many ways around it. So Ashton not denying the Trick Room this past turn might come to hurt him because he didn't go for a bite. Again, he didn't go for the roar, which we know he carries on the Kangaskhan. So yeah, Jonathan doesn't want to switch out right now because if you switch, then you give the opportunity to get potential critical hits in the back. So just going for damage, and oh my goodness, so much damage.
Kangaskhan hangs on with just 6 hit points from that Flare Blitz.
Play Rough does connect too. Wow, that should be it.
On Kangaskhan, so Ashton now down to Tapu Koko and Primal Groudon. Of course, that is a critical hit. Not going to matter too much. That damage is just gravy on top as Groudon now goes for an Earth Power, hits into that Incineroar, gets the KO, but most importantly, you know, the weather is locked. It's going to be the rain. Obviously, you know, Rayquaza can come in and Mega Evolve if it really wants to, but
I think Kyogre just comes in and clicks on Water Spout, right? Like a Kyogre against Groudon and Tapu Koko, and with the rain up is like one of the best feelings you can have. You can see Jonathan's looking quite happy, and wow, I mean, this game was so crazy. Ashton getting the flinch, but then Jonathan making the correct call there. And once again, you know, it's easy to say, oh, why didn't he protect? But obviously had Jonathan called it and went for the fake out onto the Kangaskhan while Xerneas protected, then Trick Room would have gone up anyway. So it was actually a really, really difficult position still. And I feel like Ashton pretty much didn't have a chance of winning this one after letting Trick Room go up for free at the end of this game.
And here we go now. Kyogre going to go ahead and bring out the Heavy Rain. Of course, pretty much just one Water Spout away from securing his ticket to the top 4 here versus Ashton Cox. And wow, what a well-played set from Jonathan Evans as both players now come into the final turn. You know, Ashton played a great set as well, but again, you mentioned it came down to that last that turn where, you know, Xerneas didn't protect. As Ground here just going to go ahead and protect itself, not wanting to just give up quite yet, as Tapu Koko also using this turn to protect. Now, the only out really is to kind of stall out this Trick Room, which is a lot of protects consecutively.
Yeah, I mean, you would, I think, need a triple protect with both, and even with that, I'm not sure you win the game anyway, so... I mean, yeah, just formalities really at this point. It's not over, but the thing is, even if Ashton gets all the protects he needs, you're still staring down a Kyogre and a Mimikyu, and it's like you'd have to double up into one thing and call the correct target. So, I mean, yeah, it's most likely we're gonna see, yeah, and the switch out here, I guess makes sense. I'm kind of surprised because I feel like there's really no need here. You actually negate your own water, your own rain,
but it gives opportunities for Rayquaza to just go ahead and go for Sword Dances, but it doesn't matter even here. Double Protect fails on both those Pokemon, and here comes a big, well, not Water Boosted anymore, Water Spout. Gets the KO on that ground, and Tapu Koko hangs on with just a sliver of hit points. But again, now Tapu Koko versus 3 Pokemon on Jonathan's side, not going to be enough.
Yeah, so, you know, Jonathan making that play, knowing that you're pretty much always going to be clicking Protect with Tapu Koko and the
there it is.
There,
Ashton Cox clicks the forfeit button. Jonathan Evans moves on to the top 4 here of your 2019 North American International Championship. What a well-played set from both players.
Yeah, and Mimikyu was the MVP of that set, having such an offensive set, being able to one-hit KO the opposing Xerneas. Even though it got unlucky, it missed the play rough, it got flinched, it still came through, and great adaptation by Jonathan there. It really felt like Incineroar Mimikyu was such a good lead, and Ashton had some way around it, but we didn't know if Mimikyu had Protect or not. That was a very, very key Protect in the first turn of that third game as well. So, I mean, Ashton's only way really to stop the Mimikyu would have been Tornadus and bringing it for Tom. But then that means you're bringing Tornadus, which means, like, you know, you're giving up a lot for something like that. So, I mean, just wow. Really, really impressive set from both players. A really fun set overall. And Jonathan's Mimikyu tech really coming in huge in this game. And that goes to show why players have typically opted for this bulkier Xerneas that can take really powerful physical type attacks.
But can it take a Let's Snuggle forever?
Yeah, I mean, so the Xerneas also isn't bulky. That's why it wasn't able to take it. And Ashton not having Incineroar, which we often see on these teams, means that you can't Intimidate. And without Intimidate, the Z move just does so much damage. So this game was really cool because we had 2 really cool Z moves featured, and it was a question of who's calling the Z move, when are you going for it. But yeah, I mean, that third game, once again, just the fake out and the Z move, Jonathan going full in on knocking out that Xerneas really sealed up the game.
An incredible set for both players. I mean, Game 1 really just swung heavily in Ashton's favor, especially after getting that call right of the Guardian of Alola with the Stomping Tantrum directly into Jonathan Evans's Primal Kyogre. So that was big damage, big KO, but then after that, Jonathan kind of took a step back, went to the drawing board, thought, Trick Room's the play.
Yeah, and it absolutely was. I mean, Ashton's team is the exact kind of team that really, really does not like playing against Trick Room, because look at how weak things are and how slow everything is, right? On Jonathan's end versus how fast everything is on Ashton's end. The speed and the nature of these Pokemon mean that you're attacking first most of the time, but you are also quite frail and you'll be going down to attacks pretty quickly. So if Trick Room goes up, it's pretty much all but over, especially because Kyogre, if you look at Ashton's team, none of the Pokemon actually resist water type attacks. So a Kyogre under Trick Room will just destroy everything. And yeah, you have some pressure with Fake Out, but ultimately really well played by Jonathan in that third game. And it felt like he definitely had a team advantage. So Ashton needed to get a little bit lucky. He got that first flinch with the bite, but Jonathan once again making the correct call. And of course, if Jonathan predicts the Xerneas to protect their doubles in a Kangaskhan, then I think Xerneas literally just clicks Dazzling Gleam there and the game is, or Moonblast the Mimikyu and the game is over. So yeah, it looked pretty one-sided, but it could have looked one-sided towards the other way had that one turn played out differently.
Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the bracket of the current standings here at the top 8 of the 2019 North American International Championships. Of course, we just saw Jonathan Evans defeat Ashton Cox, of course. the winner of that awaits the winner of Melvin K versus Graham Amity. Over on the other side of the bracket, Wolf Glick advances over Flavio Del Pidio, and looks like Jean-Paul Lopez Buiza advances over Kyle Livinghouse. So again, this is a very tough bracket. I mean, we just saw amazing play from Jonathan Evans to defeat one of the best players in the world at the moment, Ashton Cox. So there's still a lot more to come. I mean, I'm excited for Melvin K versus Graham Amity, so there's still more action to come. And Aaron, that play was beautiful by Jonathan Evans.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that was so fun. That is like the definition of like a best of 3 that you want to see, right? Game 1, one player wins pretty decisively. Game 2, some great adjustments. Even with all the RNG going against Jonathan, still able to pull it out. And that 3rd game, I mean, wow. Like, because if that flinch doesn't happen in the first game, or in that first turn, in that 3rd game, then Jonathan probably just wins the game, because either a Z move or a Trick Room there really puts on so much pressure. So it was so frustrating to deal with the Z move, but Jonathan keeping his head composed, making the absolute correct play the next turn. So much praise to him. But I mean, Ashton Cox once again making the top 8 of this tournament. Like, he's won 2 internationals. He's made so many good results throughout the course of the season. Multiple regional championships this year, international title. Definitely one of the favorites leading up to the World Championships, of course. So we'll definitely be seeing more of him in August in Washington.
What a comeback here. Of course, I think a lot of players are currently hoping for a run back as well between Wolf Glick and Jonathan Evans, which is still absolutely possible. I mean, you know, how hype would that be if a North American International Championship final ended up being a rematch of a World Championship final, which is, you know, it's a possibility, but of course, Jonathan still has one more match to go, and so does Wolf. So tough path for both players coming ahead. So
yeah, wow. Only one top 8 set left, and then we'll be bringing you, of course, the action from both top 4 sets. So I mean, this is that was definitely.
Man, are you okay, man? You feel? I saw you jump up.
Yeah, I mean, that was hype, right? When you're playing with flinch chances with bite and inaccurate moves, there's so much that can happen there. But I just love the adjustments that Jonathan brought. It really felt like he didn't have anything like he could really do in that first game because his team was just slower. And Mimikyu, we weren't sure what set this Mimikyu was running. Once again, really the MVP, and love to see something like that stick out in a tournament full of legendary Pokemon like the Primals and like Mega Rayquaza.
Intimidate is the best ability in the game, I feel like. That's my personal opinion. Would you somewhat agree with me?
Yeah, I mean, that's why Incineroar is on every team, right? So Ashton's team not having Incineroar really hurt him in this game.
That really shows how good of a player he is if he was able to make it this far in the tournament without Intimidate at all on his team. I mean, his motto for this team was probably knock out my opponent's Pokemon before they can knock out mine.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened in the first game. So, I mean, once again, just a really fun, dynamic set. And we've got one last top 8 set for you, and I'm really excited for that. That features our number 1 seed, Melvin versus Graham, who just snuck in, the only X&4 player to make it on to the top 8. These guys have actually played each other twice already throughout the course of the tournament. I don't think I've ever heard of this happening before, but after, you know, this top 8 set, they'll have played 3 times. And that's at least 6 games that they played against each other before.
They played day 1. Melvin K actually defeated Graham in that set, and then they played again today in the Swiss rounds as well, where Melvin also defeated him. So maybe 3rd time's the charm here for Graham, but that's still to come. I mean, again, the winner of that is going to go ahead and face off against Jonathan Evans. So over on the other side of the bracket, of course, Wolf versus Jean-Paul Lopez Buiza, hailing from Peru. So that's going to be intense as well. Again, this is it. These are the best players. I mean, this is like world's caliber stuff right here.
Oh, it is.
I mean, an international championship.
Yeah. I mean, these players that we're seeing have all made it far to Worlds before, right? Like Ashton, top cut Worlds last year. Jonathan obviously got 2nd back in 2016. So these guys are no strangers to high level play, but it is very fun to see them really demonstrate the best of the best. Man, that last game, I'm still really trying to catch a breather from, because those 2 turns back to back with Mimikyu flinching and then making the correct target, 2 of the clutchest turns, really.
You know, your Xerneas Groudon core, I believe Melvin is one of the only players left, as well as Jean-Paul Lopez Buiza. So your numbers are looking a bit slim here, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, half the field cut out, but that's what you would expect. That's the expected value, right? So
let's go ahead and throw it down to Anna with an interview with our previous winner, Jonathan Evans, to hear more about his thought process in his match.
Thanks, guys. Now, you're seeming pretty excited to be here. What's it like playing on the main stage and now being back here for an interview?
It's been a while.